Welcome to the Widowed Parent Podcast with your host, Jenny Lisk.
Hey everyone, it's Jenny Lisk, and this is episode 151 of the Widowed Parent Podcast. So I had such a great discussion with Ryane Moates for this episode, and I love what Ryane is doing with her YouTube channel, which is called Ryane to the Rescue, where she educates on all things home repair and yard care and more that widowed people find themselves responsible for after the death of their partners. Ryane herself felt so empowered after she started learning and doing all of the things that her husband used to do around the house, which was all new to her, and she wanted to share this message of hope and healing and empowerment with other widows. Before we jump into my discussion with Ryane, though, I wanted to let you guys know some news from here. So first, I know that you will love the articles that we're publishing over at the Widowed Parent Institute website. These are personal essays and book reviews and articles by widowed parents just like all of us. Some of our pieces recently are from Shar Thompson and Leila Salisbury and Jim Tilson, and one of my recent pieces is about talking with kids about a cancer diagnosis, which I wrote after Catherine, the Princess of Wales, announced that she has cancer, and it turns out that her two older kids are the exact same ages that my kids were when my own husband was diagnosed with cancer. So you can find that and all of our articles over at our website, widowedparentinstitute.com. And also, if you would like to write for us, please reach out through the website. We are especially looking for book reviews right now. And so reach out and suggest a book that you'd like to review, and we'll see if that's going to be a good fit. And please do note that if you are an author yourself, you can't write one for your own book, but you can certainly write a review of someone else's book. All right, so that's all the news from here. Let's get on with the show. Support for this podcast comes from BetterHelp. You can talk with a licensed professional therapist online, anytime, anywhere. Visit betterhelp.com/widowedparent to learn more and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/widowedparent. I hope you'll check it out. My guest today is Ryane Moates. Ryane is a widowed mom, and she is the founder of the YouTube channel Ryane to the Rescue. Life threw her a huge curveball in 2021 when her husband died unexpectedly. She found herself in uncharted territory of managing the house, the car, the yard, and so much more, all by herself. The learning curve was steep, but she was determined to conquer each task as it presented itself. Now she's helping all of us do the same with her popular YouTube channel. She's joining us today from Fort Worth, Texas. Ryane, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jenny, thanks so much for having me here. I'm a really big fan of your podcast, and I'm just so happy to be here. So thanks.
Oh, thank you. Good. I'm glad that we were able to make this work and work out. And, you know, I don't very often talk to women who are doing home improvement YouTube channels. And listeners might not know that I have a long history of doing home improvement stuff myself. So this is awesome. We can talk about all of our tools. I know I have a million power saws, and I'm sure you have a million power saws and drills and everything else too. So this is going to be fun. And you know, it's kind of funny because I did do a lot of this stuff in my kind of old life, starting with, we bought our first house. Now it was 24 years ago in Yonkers, New York, and it was a 1921 fixer-upper.
Yeah.
And the very first project was drywall. Well, actually, first painting. Like, we didn't know how to paint. Like, I had to watch Home Depot videos to learn how to paint.
Yeah,
right?
There's a technique to it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then it just kind of went from there into all this other stuff. But now I'm kind of revolting against it. But you're the exact opposite, I think. Right. I think you've taken up all of the tasks, learned all of these new skills in more recent times. And crucially here for our discussion, post becoming widowed.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, which is interesting. And so this is great. So, tool talk, widow talk, like, I can't wait to dive into all this. But before we get into that, can you set the stage for us a little bit? Can you tell us, before your husband died, when everything was normal, like, what was normal life like in pre-times?
Oh, wow. Normal was such a long time ago. I'm just 3 years post.
Okay.
my husband passing away, and it just seems like a lifetime ago.
Mm.
So, but this is what our life was like. My husband and I, we were married for 30 years, and we were just so happy. We were just really, really in sync with each other. We had a very peaceful, pleasant, playful relationship. We were very honoring to each other. We just really, really loved and liked each other a lot. We loved to do sports together. We loved to travel together. We had two teenage daughters, and we just really truly enjoyed life and our church friends and our sports friends and just being active and having fun together. So
Yeah.
that's and also, which is a pivotal part of my story, is my husband took care of everything
Aha.
around the house.
Okay.
Like literally, Jenny, like he took care of everything that had to do with the cars, everything that had to do with the house. He took care of insurance and all of our providers, anything that came up with technology or the phones. He took care of the yard. He literally took care of every single thing, which when he was alive, it was amazing and glorious. And it was just perfect because all I had to worry about was what friend I was going to go have lunch with that day and things like that. But it was pretty horrific after he died.
So let's, if you don't mind, I'd like to, like, what happened? Like, obviously we're talking because you became widowed and you just mentioned that your husband died. How did you become widowed?
Right. Well, so as I mentioned, we were very, very active together and we loved doing sports. We loved playing um, outside and we loved just being together. And so one day, it was a Sunday, a beautiful Sunday, and we had gone to church and we even served that morning at church. We were very active in our church and we just love Jesus and we love people and very, very engrossed in the Christian life and community and everything. And so that afternoon, the weather was so pretty, and he said to me, do you want to go out and uh, ride our mountain bikes? And
Mm.
I say mountain bikes, but really it's trail bikes because we live in Texas and it's not really a mountain, but trail
Okay.
bike.
All
So
right.
we're
Okay. Off-road kind of bicycle.
exactly, yes.
Okay.
So I said, yeah, let's do it. So the two of us go out riding our trail bikes, and it was just us. Sometimes we rode with other friends, but this day we were just riding by ourselves. And we were just having a great time. Like I just, it's funny because when I look back on that day, we were doing everything that we should have been doing. We were out enjoying beautiful nature. We were stretching and moving our bodies. We were building new skills. We were building our relationship. We were even like glorifying God, that morning in church and then enjoying nature and everything. Like everything was perfect until tragedy occurred because my husband was riding his bike and he rode on this small ramp and he was right in front of me. So I literally saw the whole thing unfold. And his bicycle tire went off of the ramp. And when it did, it catapulted him and his bicycle forward and down, like flipping forward. And
Ooh.
he just smashed into the hard packed dirt.
Wow.
And you would think if you're going to wreck your trail bike, you would think, oh, I bet you might break a clavicle or you might break your wrist or something like that. Or,
Mm-hmm.
I
Sure.
mean, or in worst case scenario, you might break your hip or something. You might think something like that. And of course, we had all our safety gear on. We had helmets and elbow pads and knee pads and gloves on, all of that good stuff. But when he fell, it was just the most tragic of all falls, and he snapped his neck.
Ooh. That
And
must
when,
have been scary. You were right behind him when this happened?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So he hit the ground, and he broke his neck and his back and some ribs and several teeth in that fall.
Wow.
Hmm.
Did you have any idea how bad I imagine it was probably so fast and so slow at the same time, like hard to figure out what's going on.
Well, I actually have a background in the medical profession.
Oh,
And so when I saw him hit the ground, I literally knew immediately how severe the injury was by the
mm,
way his body fell and by the way he was not responding and things like that. So I knew immediately that he had a spinal cord injury and he was paralyzed from the neck down.
mm,
Yeah.
wow.
And so we were in utter panic, and we were literally all alone. There was no one else around us at all, and we were nestled deep in the woods. And
Mm,
so we had to wait until someone else came because I was holding him and I didn't want to free my hands to try to get a telephone, because
okay.
we both had our phones on us, but like my hands were busy. And
Gotcha.
so we had to wait until someone else came along on the path. And when they did, I directed them to my phone. He called 911, and it took a minimum of 30 minutes for the ambulance to get to us because we
Mm,
were tucked in deep in the woods, and they had to carry a stretcher to us. You couldn't just roll one. They
and they
had to.
couldn't get the ambulance in. It wasn't like wide enough, like a dirt road or something. Like,
Oh, no. The ambulance was out in the parking lot. And so they
oh,
were they were winding their way through the trees and everything to get to us.
mm,
And it was an ordeal before they finally found us. It was a long time.
wow. And then they got you to the hospital.
Yeah, so we got to the hospital, and I was just so flustered and shocked and just beside myself. And we were still in COVID times at that time. It was 2021.
Mm,
And so they wouldn't let anyone else in except for me. So it was just him and me. And it was just a really, really terrifying time. And interestingly, because of my Christian faith, I just believed with every single cell in my body that he would be healed.
mm,
Every single iota of me. I was like, he's going to get up. His spinal cord is going to, it's going to be fine. And he's going to get up off of that bed and come home with me, and everything is going to be fine. Sadly, that's not what happened.
mm-hmm.
He was admitted into the hospital, and he continued to get worse and worse and worse. Of course, we were hoping that his spinal cord would heal and he would start to get movement back and get his strength back and things like that. But he continued to get worse, and he began to lose different functions that he had before. He could no longer swallow, and then he couldn't even really support his own breathing very well. And so his function just continued to get worse and worse. And then he coded.
Mm,
And when he coded, he was gone for 15 minutes. Then they revived him. But when
wow.
they revived him, he really never came back because he was in a deep, deep, profound coma.
Mm,
And again, I was still standing in hope and faith and belief for a miracle, for just this amazing divine miracle from heaven that he would just get up off of that bed. But he was beyond Well, I'm not going to say he was beyond a miracle, but that's just not what happened. He did not miraculously get better, and he continued to go downhill. He was in a coma for 5 weeks, and he was in ICU for a total of 7 weeks from the day of the accident, and then he passed away.
Wow. Wow, I'm
Mhm.
sorry. That sounds really hard, and thank you for telling us about that.
Yeah.
And it was the height of COVID, you said. So they let you in, but your girls were not able to go in, or they were?
No, they weren't allowed to go in to see their dad.
Wow. That
Yeah,
must have been really hard.
it was. It was actually a year after the whole world shutdown of COVID because this happened in March of 2021, but there were still lots of really stringent restrictions at that time. And
Yeah, I
so,
think it was before the vaccines were widely available and everything was still very much locked down and masks and restrictions.
right.
And your girls were not small. You said they were teenagers. How old were they?
Yeah. So when the accident occurred, my youngest was 16 years old. And then, as you know, he was in the hospital for 7 weeks. And during those 7 weeks, my birthday happened
Hmm.
and my daughter's birthday happened. So she turned 17
Mm-hmm.
while her dad was in ICU. My
Mm-hmm.
other daughter was already 19.
Okay.
So, by the time he passed away, they were 17 and 19.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So it sounds like they're just a little bit older than my kids are, 17 and 19 now. Uh,
Oh,
so
yeah.
so just a little bit older than mine. Cool. Okay, well, that sounds incredibly difficult. And then I know you've said that when your husband died, you didn't know how to do anything. I think it was maybe I saw your YouTube channel in terms of like the house, the car, the yard, like all the stuff right now fell to you.
Yeah. It was truly remarkable. And, you know, I could say that I'm ashamed that I didn't know how to do anything, but I'm just gonna know in my heart that I was so well cared for that I didn't have a need to
Yeah.
know
Oh
how to
yeah.
do so many things.
Yeah. No shame. I mean, gosh, there's a million tasks in the world, right? And we all know how to do some of them, and some of us know how to do others of them. We can't possibly know how to do everything. I don't know how
Right.
to do. I just had wrist surgery last week. I don't know how to do wrist surgery. I guess I know how to get wrist surgery.
Yeah, you do now.
Anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted.
Well, there's so many things that adults know how to do
Mm,
and they have experience with, but there's so many things that I just simply didn't know how to do. Just a simple task of how to renew the registration on your car, which every person who owns a car has to do that every single year.
mm,
But I was 52 years old and I had never done it one single time. So I
uh,
didn't even know the process. I didn't know how much you had to pay or how to pay or how
sure,
to set up the online portal to pay.
sure.
I didn't know, do you get this notification through the mail or an email? How do you even pay the state? And what you have to get your car inspected too? Like there's a whole process to it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
yeah, I
sure.
didn't know these things
Sure.
because my husband took care of it. And so I was just like a deer in the headlights with every single task that came up. Every
Yeah,
single task, like the yard, what? The yard? I don't know how to take care of that.
yeah.
Or the
Well, hey,
the
I'm that
water.
way too. On the
You
yard,
are
oh my God, don't get me started on the yard. But anyway, I
okay.
digress.
There's some things I'm not alone in.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and that was like Dennis was outside guy. He did anything yard, fertilizer, cutting, like that was his area. And so I was
mhm,
like, wipe that off my plate. I don't care about, I like having a nice yard. I don't want to think about the yard, right?
right? You just want it to magically be beautiful.
Exactly. Exactly. See? That's what we need. That's what we need a solution for next. But let me ask, okay, because I was looking at your YouTube channel and I'm seeing you on there with table saws and showing us the push sticks and the how to tilt the blade and how to install this and do that and how to keep it safe. And you know, you're a table saw boss. So how did you get from what you're describing a few minutes ago to what I'm watching in the videos? Like what was that first thing that got you into home improvement stuff?
Okay, well, I love that you asked that question. My husband was a tool freak. He just loved to collect tools. That was his very favorite thing. Any Christmas, any birthday that ever came up, if you got him a Home Depot gift card, he was the happiest guy ever. And he would go tell me, like if he got $100 gift card, he would come home and show me his haul. This is what I bought, and this is what this is used for. And
Nice.
if you buy this, then you need this too. So
Yeah,
he
for
just
sure.
loved tools, and he loved all of the tools. And so when he passed away, I inherited a whole garage full of tools.
Uh-huh.
And there's this fire in me, even though in some ways I was very helpless and I was very fragile and I was very hopeless and I felt defenseless. Like I felt like I didn't know how to do anything. I felt very ill equipped for life, you know? But there's this fire in me too. And this, I had a whole garage full of tools, and I could do one of two things. I could sell all of them and get rid of them and be like, I don't want these. I don't need these. I don't want to have anything to do with them. Or I could use them. And I thought, what better way to empower myself than to learn how to use every single tool in the garage. And so I made that my commitment. I was like, even from a little hand tool, which I
Uh-huh.
called them the wrong thing, by the way. Let me tell you a funny story. I made a video, and one of the videos that I posted on YouTube, and I took it down, by the way, I held up a tool and I said, grab your wrench and follow me. And I go off and I do this task and stuff. And somebody writes in and says, that's not a wrench.
Oh no, what
That's
was it?
pliers. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to teach people how to do stuff and I called it the wrong thing.
Oh,
So I
that's too
made
funny.
it, yeah, I made it my goal to learn every single tool, whether it be a hand tool. I wanted to learn the name and I wanted to learn how to use it effectively.
Okay.
And if it was a power tool, whether it be a drill or a drill driver or a sander, I wanted to learn what it was called. I wanted to learn all of the functions and how to use it. And then even the big things like table saws and big things like that.
Hmm.
I was just like, I'm going to learn how to use every single thing. And I thought, if I have to go through the trouble of learning this, then I'm going to go ahead and teach other people too, because I bet you there's other widows that don't know how to use these things. So
Yeah.
that was my mission, to learn every single tool and then teach all of the widows how to use those too.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I love that. And you know, one of the things this is reminding me of, a few years ago, a listener wrote to me and was saying her husband had taken care of a lot of stuff and she had two kids and he had died. And she's like, the snowblower, like she's not in your part of the country or my part of the country where we don't have snowblowers, but northeast somewhere, I think. She didn't know how to use a snowblower, how to service it, how to take care of, I don't know, this and that. And she was asking me, like, could I make some content on home improvement stuff? And I was thinking about it, and I actually have a whole list. And then I never like got around to it. So I'm glad I don't have to do it now. You've
Right,
you've got
right.
this covered, so that's awesome. And of course we're gonna
Yes.
put links in the show notes to all the stuff. But I feel like there was some plumbing project or something that was your first kind of foray into this whole like I can fix a problem that pops up. What was that about?
Yes, your lovely word foray makes it sound so romantic and dramatized, but really absolute, utter, chaotic crisis and tragedy is what it was.
Okay. All right. So do tell.
Yeah, so my older daughter, who was 19, she was taking a shower and the shower broke.
Oh.
And it's not just like a simple little thing like, oh, let's just replace the handle. No, 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 no. It was the cartridge that connects the handle to the actual on off switch to the water that comes from the wall. So this was a big deal.
Mm.
And you couldn't just turn it off because it was literally behind the wall.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So she's stuck with the shower that literally won't turn off and it's just spewing. And
Oh.
so I wasn't home. She calls a neighbor, and the neighbor fortunately knew how to turn off the water at the street, like the main power,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, the main water line to the house.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know how to do that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I've made a video about that since.
Oh, good.
But I had no idea how to do that. So then I get home and I have this crisis about the shower that's broken and the water that's turned off to our house. And we have 3 women in the house, and there's no possible way we could function without running water for very long.
Right. You
And
got
I
the
couldn't turn
toilets
the
don't
water.
work, the dishwasher doesn't work, the sink, the
Correct.
kitchen, everything, right?
Yeah. No water, no washing your hands, no taking
Yeah. Yeah.
showers, no
Yeah.
brushing your teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah, no water.
Okay.
So I have that crisis, which is kind of twofold with no water and the plumbing that was broken. But then also my younger daughter had a concert that night, and I had already committed to going to that concert. And, she was already down one parent. I certainly wasn't going to fail her. I was going to definitely show up and be there and be the parent rep. But then I had already committed to picking up my mom and bringing her to the concert as well.
Uh,
So I was suddenly overextended, but I didn't want to let anyone down. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to let the house just sit there for a moment because I have a daughter to tend to. So I pick up my mom, I get to the concert, I cheer on my daughter and do all the whole parent support and everything. Meanwhile, inside, I'm fretting and stewing about this whole plumbing issue that I have. And of course, this whole thing happens on a Saturday. So I can't just call up a plumber and say, hey, pop over to my house because it's
mm,
way after office hours and probably would have cost an arm and a leg to have a plumber out.
sure.
So a friend of mine said, here, call this guy. Maybe he can help or talk you through it or something like that. And so I called up this plumber and he said, I'll do a video chat with you and I will talk you through the whole entire process.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Did I want to fix the plumbing? Absolutely not.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't want to part with the hundreds or perhaps thousands of dollars it would take to
Yeah.
get a plumber out there. And I didn't want my family to go without water.
Right.
So through literal tears, I was crying. And I even had to explain to the plumber, I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm crying. I'm a widow and I'm not used to handling this stuff. And I don't know how to do any of these things. And
Uh-huh.
he's, it's okay. Take a deep breath. And then he said, okay, go find an adjustable wrench. And I go dig through my husband's tool bag. And I didn't know what anything was called. And so I pull
Did you
out a
come back
tool.
with the
I'm like,
pliers?
yeah, exactly. I'm like, is it this? And he said, no. And I dig around in there some more. Is it this? And he's like, no. And I dig around some more until I finally got the right thing.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, so this was a 2-day project. He
Okay.
talked me through every little step and even showed me what to buy because I had to go buy some things at the store.
Mm.
And he walked me through every little thing. He treated me so gently. And he walked me through every little thing. And the reason why he didn't come is because this plumber actually was an hour away.
Ah.
And so it was better for him to just talk me through it. And it would have cost a lot to have him come out. So anyway, what was so pivotal about that event is when I was faced with the broken shower and the spewing water or the water turned off to my house, and I didn't know how to use any of the tools or how to fix this thing. when I was faced with it, I literally felt so overwhelmed, so helpless, so hopeless, so defeated, so unequipped, and I felt dumb too. I just felt like I can't do any of this stuff. But I went ahead and I picked up that wrench and I kept on powering through. I bought the needed supplies. I disassembled that shower. I worked down inside of the wall, pulled out the broken pieces. I put back in the broken pieces. I used all of the components that I needed to use. And lo and behold, after I did all of that stuff, I turned the water back on at the street and the shower worked beautifully.
Oh, yay.
And do you know how I felt?
How?
I felt so excited. I felt so proud. I felt so empowered. I felt like a genius. I felt like a plumber. I felt like a badass. I just felt like I could conquer and do anything. And
Yeah.
I knew in that moment the huge transformation that I took in my thoughts and in my attitudes and in my feelings, the huge transformation that occurred prior to the task and after the task. I knew that I had to share that message with other widows.
Awesome. That's what a terrific story. And what a, because one of the things I hear from a lot of widowed people is maybe particularly women, but sort of that sense of, disempowerment and, the loss of what they knew, obviously, the loss of what they expected, the increased overwhelm and responsibility and all these things. And so that message of empowerment in this unexpected way. I mean, who would have thought, right? When your husband was in the ICU, I'm sure you didn't think, "Hey, I'm going to find empowerment someday in fixing this shower."
Right. So
And
unexpected.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And so then you started a YouTube channel to spread this sense of empowerment and practical skills
Exactly.
to other widowed people. That's amazing.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I was going to have to learn everything. I was going to have to learn how to use a lawnmower, how to use a
Mm,
weed eater, how to use every little tool and every task, even with cars. And so I was going to have to learn it all. So I thought, I bet you there's other widows who don't know how to do it
yeah, yeah,
either. And
yeah.
so I'm going to teach them too.
Yeah, that's terrific. Okay, so so on your channel then, you have different playlists, I think, on different topics. Like what is kind of the scope of some of the stuff you cover?
So, okay, under cars. If a woman, and this started out really, my heart was to help widows, but then really all single women need to have some knowledge of how to take care of their cars or their lawn or something like that, or if they're a homeowner, of how to take care of the home. But then it's just gone much wider than I thought because I have a whole bunch of men subscribers too that get
Nice.
value from my content. So that's a beautiful thing. So I teach lots of different things. So, for example, under the car category, I have a video on how to change your windshield wiper blades, how
Mm,
to even fill your windshield wiper fluid. And
mm-hmm.
that's one of my biggest viewed videos.
Huh.
And also how to change your car battery. Believe it or not, I've
Uh,
done that.
uh-huh.
How
Uh-huh.
to jumpstart a car. There's a lot of
Nice.
people who don't know how to do that
Uh-huh.
properly.
Mm-hmm.
And then I happen to have a BMW, and BMWs are a little bit weird and unique. And so I sometimes put out videos that are specifically for that. And one of my biggest videos is the one on how to change the battery in your BMW key fob. And
Mm.
that's almost got 200,000 views on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Well, and you mentioned having male subscribers. I think I saw a comment on one of your videos. I think you have done a bunch of on the tool kind of category of like how to use power tools and how to use them safely and what they're for and things like that. And
Yes.
you have I think they're a lot of Ryobi brand.
Yes,
And
I
so
do.
somebody commented like they found your channel because they were looking for a Ryobi tutorial on some tool and that you had the best like tutorial content on Ryobi tools that
Oh,
he found. There was a guy commenting, that he could find on the internet, and he had found you that way and seemed to appreciate what you're doing and sharing.
I love that. That makes my heart so
Yeah,
happy.
isn't that great? And I have to say
Yes.
the table saw video was a good one. And I bought my table saw over 20 years ago, and it's a DeWalt. It's a fine table saw, but I was looking at yours and I was like, ooh, that's got some nice features.
Oh,
Like
cool. Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
outfeed, like where you had the thing you could pull it out to the side and to the front, right?
Right.
To if you have a long piece of material, like mine doesn't have that, and that would be a pretty handy. Um, I was kind of geeking out on the tool stuff on your channel.
I love that we're both tool kind of gals and we're
Yeah.
fix it kind of gals. And, even though you said, maybe sometimes I don't even want to do these things, the, the great thing is that you can.
Mm, mm,
And it's perfectly fine if you want to hire somebody to do it for you or have a friend over to come help you or something. That's great. Those are great options.
mm.
Um, but the thing is, you can do it if you want to. And
Yeah.
I think that's a great skill to have.
Well, that's a good point. And the other part of that, I think, too, is if you have some knowledge, and even if you're not going to do it yourself, you can ask better questions of the person you're hiring. Or you can maybe, see if they're giving you the wrong, I don't know, you can do, like if you know some stuff, right? It's
Mhm.
easier to talk to them. It's easier to even know who to call. Or if they're steering you wrong or trying to sell you something you don't need or whatever. I remember that I had an electrician over because I was doing some kitchen stuff and he had to do all this like stuff that I was not going to do, like pull new circuits to the kitchen because there was like just stuff, right?
Right.
And I was asking him some questions about the circuit on one of the outlets, and he looked at me and he was like, "How do you know that?" and but it was funny because I was a woman and he was kind of a younger guy, and I don't think he'd ever had a woman ask him that before. And it was something about like in an electrical outlet, you can break the tab and have two different circuits go through the same outlet. Like normally you have one circuit go through an outlet, but anyway, I asked him about that, and I just felt empowered, right? To your point of empowerment, that I was able to ask a question that helped me get a better result from the work he was doing. In other
Yes. Good
words,
for
even
you. I
though I
love it.
wasn't doing the work myself in this case.
Hmm.
So
I love
yeah,
it.
cool. Um, do you have a favorite power tool?
Yes, I do. And my
Okay.
favorite one is a really, really simple one. And it's one that I would suggest that everyone have. It is called a drill driver.
Okay.
And it is a power tool, but you can just use it as a screwdriver. You can put screws in and out with it. You just change the direction of the drill driver. Some screws are really, really long, whether it be in furniture or in the wall or whatever. And if you were just going to use a screwdriver to manually unscrew that,
Oh
oh my
yeah.
gosh, that would take a lot of effort and a lot of time.
Mm.
So I think a drill driver is a great thing to have. And then also, as the name implies, it's also a drill. So if you have a set of drill bits, then you can drill any holes that you need to as well. But it's a really simple power tool, but it really does a lot of different functions.
Yeah. Okay, that's a great recommendation. And that sounds like a good thing for any homeowner to have. Or even if you don't own your home, maybe you're, I don't know, putting together furniture or something.
Right.
I think of how many times I've put together IKEA furniture, and if you're doing everything by hand, it can be a lot of screwing and unscrewing to get all those bolts
Yes.
in place. Yeah. Okay. All right, is there another, one or two tools that you think that we should all have at our disposal?
Yeah. So if you're going to build a tool bag, then you should definitely have the drill driver, like I mentioned, and then also have a variety of hand tools, like maybe a couple of different sizes of wrenches, a couple of different sizes of pliers. And let me tell you one that would be really, really super important is the adjustable wrench. And that's the
Aha.
one that I was supposed to find with the plumber. Now I know it has a thumb screw on it. So you can twist it on the handle and then that wrench will fit any size of bolt.
Mm-hmm.
So that could save you from getting a socket set. If you don't want to have a socket set, you could have an adjustable wrench, and then you can tighten or loosen any nut that you happen to have in the house.
Gotcha. Because if you have a socket set, then you have a million different sizes of sockets because they're specific sized, right?
Right, right. And then also wire snips, you would want to
Mm.
have those. And then another power tool, which is really simple but super handy to have, is an electric sander. So sometimes
Ah.
if you have a door that rubs or even a drawer that rubs or something like that, if you have an electric sander, you can fix that problem quite easily.
Do you like the random orbit sander or the quarter sheet sander?
Oh my gosh, your intelligent questions. What were they again? What did you say?
The random orbit sander, it's got like a round um sanding pad,
Okay.
and the quarter sheet sander is a square sanding pad.
Okay. I have the quarter sheet sander, which I like because it can plow through a project very quickly.
Mm.
And so that's a great time saver and effort saver. I don't have the round one that you mentioned, but I have one that's very similar and it's battery operated,
Hmm.
and it has a triangular head.
Oh,
And the nice thing about the triangular head, as opposed to the round one, is you can get into corners and you can sand right into corners with it.
yeah. Nice.
So I
Nice.
like both, and they have different functions and
Sure.
purposes.
Sure.
And since one is battery operated and one is electric, then that gives you different functions as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned they all have different purposes, and I found that, you get into this project, and you find out you need another special tool for, different things. But yeah, it's fun. So how are you doing on that list of learning every tool in the garage?
I'm doing pretty good. So, interestingly, I gave away one of the tools that my husband had, and I gave it away as payment for a project that a handyman did for me. And
Hmm.
so I don't regret it because it was definitely a great trade-off for
Uh,
me.
uh-huh.
But the tool that I gave him is called a miter saw.
Oh
And
yeah.
so now I don't have one of those
Oh, you need
to
one of those.
learn. Yeah, I don't have one of those to learn and teach on.
Yeah.
So either I'll buy another one or I have friends that have a miter saw so I
Mm,
can learn and use theirs, and I can even teach and shoot a video on that one.
sure.
So the tools that I actually own and have in my garage, I think I have mastered all of them, I'm proud to
Nice.
say. Yeah.
Well, you need like a big award or something for that. Like a
Yeah.
big, like, I don't know, you need like a party, like a YouTube channel party for like, I made my goal.
Yeah, every time I accomplish a big task, I really feel like there should be a studio audience applauding me. And
Yes.
I feel like somebody should be putting a medal around my neck. Like, I need some accolades for these big things that I'm accomplishing.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like.
Well, maybe you can build that in somehow. I don't know. Figure out some way to, I don't know what, well, maybe invite us to, wait, aren't you coming up, I think, on your anniversary as we're speaking here? Anniversary of your channel soon?
Yes, yes, yeah. It's almost my 2-year anniversary.
Ah, congratulations.
Thank
Well,
you.
that sounds worthy of calling in a studio audience and doing a special episode.
Okay. I'll work on that. I'll work on that. I don't know if I have enough time in a couple of days because it's literally just a few days away.
Yeah.
But I do love the idea of having people right there ready to applaud for me.
Yeah.
And sometimes to be silly, but yet still, my heart, I kind of need applause that I accomplished something great. Is sometimes in my videos at the end of the video when I like turn on the thing and then it works and it didn't work before, then I do put in this applause track.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, and so maybe it has to be the 3-year anniversary, or maybe it needs to be your 500th video, or I'm not sure how many videos you're on now, but some milestone.
Right,
You do something fun. Speaking of the end of your videos, I've noticed in your videos you've got a Rosie the Riveter vibe going on. Can you tell
right.
us what's up with that?
Well, let me tell you a little bit behind Rosie first, just in case anybody doesn't know what the origination of that is. So, back in the early 1940s, and the US, well, we were in World War II at the time. Um, Many of the men that were in the US were suddenly off in another country fighting the war. And so a lot of these jobs that were held by men were suddenly empty, but yet they were really important jobs and they still needed to be taken care of. As a matter of fact, they needed to be taken care of more than ever because we were in war. We needed people running the shipyards. We needed people in the warehouses and people welding and people putting together plane parts and things like that. And all of those things were normally done by men. So, what the government did is they created this image of Rosie, a female person, riveting and just like dressed up in work clothes and things like that. And so that's why she was called Rosie the Riveter. And so she worked in like a factory, putting together planes and riveting things like that. And so the reason for that was because the government wanted to empower and like pull women into the workforce. They really needed women to come in and do these roles that were hard and dirty and hot and normally man's work. And so it worked. It worked. Women went into the workplace and they started doing all of these tasks and operating these power tools and doing all of these things. And so now, 80 years later, the image of Rosie the Riveter is still an icon of female empowerment. So it was just a perfect pairing for my message to empower women to pick up a power tool, to maybe like put down their apron and put down the muffins, pick up a saw and a riveter and do these tasks that were customarily the men's tasks, or in our case, speaking from widows, customarily they were the husband's tasks, but suddenly there are tasks now.
Hmm.
So,
We have all
yeah,
the tasks after
all the
becoming
tasks.
widowed. Yes. I love that. And I'll say for listeners, I encourage everybody to go look at your channel, of course, including the visuals. And you've got this delightful, rosy, like costume and styling, and I think you even have a shirt that's kind of like hers with your name Ryane, where her name
Yes.
Rosie, like they both start with R, so it's kind of a nice like echo there. It's just it's a very empowering, can do kind of positive message, encouraging vibe, I think, throughout all of your videos, with the theme and then the way you're tackling the content. So nice work.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks.
this is great. Okay, well, gosh, we could talk about tools all day long. Um, but one more question: do you have a favorite hand tool, or do you have one that you've been dying to learn how to use?
Let's see. Well, because my husband loved Ryobi tools, now I have a love for them because I inherited so many of them.
Sure. Yeah.
So probably what I'd like to do is just go down the aisles of Home Depot and visit
Ah,
the Ryobi section and
nice.
just find out whatever is the newest one,
Yeah.
whatever is the newest tool to do the task, to make something else easier and something else more effective. That's what I want to do is I just want to go grab the newest Ryobi tool and learn
Yeah.
how to do that
Nice. Well, you'll have to make a video when you do that and take us
for sure.
behind the scenes on your trip down the aisles, find it, learn how to use it, tell us all about it. Good. Well, I'm going to put the link to your channel for sure, in the notes, and so many good things we talked about today. I think you've got videos about um, plumbing things and electrical things, and I even saw you had a video. Actually, I loved it. There was a video about teaching children how to change a light bulb.
Yep.
And, I mean, you might say, well, okay, change a light bulb, fine, screw it, unscrew it, screw it, whatever. But it was so well done as far as like I think you talked to the person about righty tighty, lefty loosey, and let's unscrew a peanut butter jar first, and the way the screw works on on and off is the same way a light bulb works, and now let's go try it, and just kind of walking through and empowering the next generation
Right.
with this kind of stuff too. So I encourage people to check out that. I'll find that video actually and put it in the show notes too, because that was a fun one. Gosh, I think we're just about at the end of our time here, but I did forget to ask, what were those early months as a widowed parent like? I mean, I think it was you didn't expect to be in this situation. It was a shocking, all of a sudden, um, massive change. What were those early months like?
Well, for me, I was used to always going to my daughter's concerts and gymnastic meets and all of her different performances. I was always used to going to those with my husband. And so, whether we were in the stands or in auditorium or outside in lawn chairs, wherever we were, he was in a chair right next to me, and we were both cheering her on. And we were both, talking about like how the costumes looked and things like that. And so when he passed away, I had to attend all of those things by myself. And of course, I was still going to be there for my daughter, and I wanted to see everything, and I wanted to cheer her on, and I wanted to be present for her and everything. But I just couldn't cope with going by myself. It was just too lonely. It was just too hard. It was just way too sad. I knew that I would just sit there in the stands and just bawl tears after tears if I was there alone and the seat next to me was empty. And so I had a really good coping strategy that worked great for me. So I'll share it with your listeners. Maybe they can use it as well. Is I reached out to my friends and I shared with them all of my daughter's, her whole schedule for her gymnastics meets, all of her schedule for her football games and band concerts and competitions and everything. And I had a friend sign up to attend with me every single thing.
Nice.
Not one event did I go to alone. And so I always had a friend next with me. I mean, I always had a friend next to me, and we cheered my daughter on together. We celebrated the event together. I had a companion to talk with, in between scenes or intermission or whatever. And it just lifted my spirits so much. And it took the intense feeling of loneliness away.
I love that. That's a really great practical idea and a good hack, right? For what am I trying to say? I don't know, figuring out how to just get by in those early months when
Exactly, getting
everything,
by.
yeah, is so difficult. Thank you for sharing that with us. I hope that will be helpful to my listeners. And I think that's actually a great place for us to end today. So my guest today is Ryane Moates, who's a widowed mom and is the founder of the YouTube channel Ryane to the Rescue. So Ryane, where can listeners find you and find your channel?
Oh, yes. Well, look me up on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, and mostly on YouTube because that's my biggest platform. And as you have already mentioned, the name is Ryane to the Rescue, but I just want your listeners to know that Ryane is spelled Ryane. So be sure to remember the E because you want to type that in when you type in Ryane to the Rescue. So,
Okay,
yeah.
terrific. And we'll also put the link in the show notes so that people can get right to the right place
Okay.
right away. And I'll
Wonderful.
encourage people to go over there, check it out, subscribe, hit the bell so you got all the new content and we can see
All
what
the
you have,
things.
yeah, coming up in the next year here. I can't wait to watch what kind of videos you tackle next and what kind of tools you're going to show us and get some inspiration and empowerment. So, Ryane, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It's been a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Ryane Moates as much as I did. You can find show notes and all the links at widowedparentpodcast.com. Look for episode 151. And if you're finding the Widowed Parent Podcast helpful, please consider supporting the show. It's easy. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/widowedparent. That's buymeacoffee.com/widowedparent. As always, thank you for listening, and until next week, remember, you've got this.
Thank you for listening to the Widowed Parent Podcast with your host, Jenny Lisk. Connect with us on social media and at widowedparentpodcast.com.